How do I steal people's money? You got your free lunch scam. Get in on this opportunity right now, plus you get a free lunch. Your sweetheart scam, grandparent scam, those are exciting. Hello, Grandma? I'm in jail in Tijuana. They're telling me I need $3,000. Or if I'm feeling old school, I could just jump in your garbage. Come up with a credit card bill. Ka-ching. I'm now you.
Visit the AARP Fraud Watch Network to learn how to protect yourself from identity theft, fraud, and this guy.
My name is Elliott Greenblott, and some people call me Mr. Scammer because for the past 3 years, I've served as the Fraud Watch Coordinator for the state of Vermont's AARP program. Fraud Watch has been looking at something called phishing, and phishing is the use of the internet as a means to get information from you that can jeopardize your identity. We're going to take a look at a good example of phishing that I received not too long ago. If you look carefully, you'll see that this email was actually sent to me. It has my name on it, and it is addressed to me, supposedly from the Bank of America. But if you look closely at the little box that I identified and blown up on the side, it shows you that there's no indication that the email actually came from Bank of America. It says th@uk32.myserverhost.com, not Bank of America, which would be BOA.com or bankofamerica.com. The email goes on to say that this is a security alert and that there's a problem. And the way that I need to rectify the problem is simply go online to my account and provide some basic information. What do these people want? Well, let's click on the link and see what they're asking for. We go to the first screen, and at the top of the screen, it looks very much like a Bank of America webpage. It asks me for my ID and password, but notice that, again, the address of this page is not Bank of America. It's shikisushi.com.br. Certainly, again, not Bank of America. But let's say I didn't recognize that, and I went ahead and I filled in my ID and my password, which would automatically give somebody access to my Bank of America account. Once I do that, I go to a third page or third frame that we have, and you can see that these people are again asking me for some information. Now they want my bank credit or debit card number and some other information about my card, including the security code. They want my email password, my zip code, and my social security number. Know that Bank of America would never ask for this information online. You would fill out a normal application and complete that and send it in. Also, take a look at the email address for this page, which is different than the last one. emdee.com.au. Quite often, phishing expeditions utilize multiple servers. As a result, they can't be traced very easily. We go to the last slide that we have. If you enter the data that they're requesting, and you can see that now I'm being asked for my security questions. Now, once the con artist has all this information, they can simply access my account, change this information at their decision, and then hijack my account. We want people to be very certain that they are safe when they're banking online. And if you receive an indication from a bank or credit card company or anybody else that says you need to verify the information on your account, contact the bank directly with a secure number. If it's a credit card, go to the credit card itself, look at the number on the back of the card, call that number. Call the institution that issues that particular card or has that account and see if there is a problem. Report this to the organization.
ATM skimming is a simple and unfortunately common practice criminals use to steal money and information from people without them even knowing it. ATM skimming occurs at various locations that have ATMs, such as vending machines, banks, gas pumps, as well as any other place where people swipe a debit or credit card. Criminals attach a device known as a reader to an existing device that is capable of reading your ATM or credit card. Readers usually look identical to the actual ATM or related device and capture and store all of the information contained on the card when it is swiped. The thieves then use the information at a later time to clone the card. Cloning is the process of making a duplicate card with all of the information contained. A clone card is then used as you would a legitimate ATM or credit card to withdraw money or make a purchase. Here are some tips for spotting a skimming device. Before using any card-reading device such as an ATM, give the card reader a tug to see if it feels loose or out of place. Inspect the device to look for any damage or imperfection to the machine, such as scratches, tape residue, or if the reader doesn't look the same as the others near it. Criminals place skimming devices in high-traffic areas to gain the most information. Be especially vigilant in tourist areas, as these locations are most frequently targeted by criminals. Money trapping is another method used to steal money. To accomplish this, criminals install a device at ATMs or other cash dispensing devices that prevent money from leaving the cash dispenser, physically trapping the money inside the machine. Perpetrators wait for unsuspecting victims to leave, and then they retrieve the money. When entering a PIN or personal identification number at an ATM machine, be sure to cover the keyboard with your free hand to prevent criminals or hidden cameras at the location from surreptitiously recording it. If you encounter a card reader that you suspect may have been tampered with, call 911 and report it immediately to the financial institution or business. The best defense against these crimes is an alert and informed public. Working together, these criminals can be stopped.
My guest today is Annick Billert. Annick is Assistant Vice President and Main Branch Manager at the Bank of Bennington, and we're going to be looking a little bit at some of the techniques and issues involving security with banks. So welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We've just looked at some information about ATMs and ATM usage, and I'm just wondering if the bank has any particular suggestions for people as they use an ATM.
Absolutely. Always be vigilant. Tug on the readers. Make sure that everything looks proper. Everything that was stated in that video is absolutely spot on. Make sure there aren't any scratches. If you question that the terminal is safe, use another one. Certainly, if you were to use your debit card, credit card in a machine that had a skimmer on it and your information was retrieved, we at the bank, and there's other applications to protect your information and to give you information when your card is used. We use Secure Lock. This is an app that you have on your phone. Every time your debit card or credit card is used, you get a notification that it has been used, at what store, and what the dollar amount is. This is a nice feature so that if your information is ever compromised, debit card compromises happen all the time, unfortunately. Skimming is becoming more prevalent, especially in touristy areas. This application, Secure Lock, would be able to notify you every time that transaction was used. If it was your transaction, fantastic. If it was not, you'd be able to notify the bank immediately.
Is there a difference between ATM machines? Being, a bank, if I'm a Bank of Bennington customer, using a Bank of Bennington machine at the bank versus using an ATM machine by some other bank, or for instance at a convenience store, at a restaurant or a bar or some other place, is there a difference?
I would say yes. Because at the bank, we have security cameras. We fund those ATM machines, or our armored car service funds those machines, and they're all instructed to look around the machines, look around the kiosks, make sure that they're all equipped properly. If you're using a machine at a gas station, who knows when the last time that machine was really looked over for skimming apparatuses.
So there is a difference in terms of the machine itself.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure there probably is a difference in terms of usage fees too, if you're using an out-of-network machine or if you're using a machine that is at another bank.
Correct. If you're using your bank's machine, typically there is not a fee involved. Every bank is different. However, if you're using a kiosk in a grocery store, convenience store, there typically is a fee, and it's much more than if it was at an ATM owned by a bank.
So hopefully our listeners are paying attention in terms of which machines they're using. Obviously, there are times when you don't have an option of using your own bank's machine, but if you're at home, and there's that immediate need to get some cash because you realize you don't have any, it's always better to use your own bank's machine.
Absolutely.
We're seeing a lot of con artists these days who are being very effective at using the internet, using the telephone, even coming to people by mail or in person. What are banks doing today to combat that?
It's education. Educating our customers to understand there are bad people out there. If you receive a phone call stating it's the Bank of Bennington and they're asking questions that typically a bank would not ask, hang up. Look up the telephone number independently in the phone book, online, and call the bank back. If it's truly something that we as a bank are trying to call you and inform you about or ask you about, you'll be able to contact that person again. That goes for anybody. If you get a phone call from the IRS saying that you owe them money, hang up. Call the actual IRS. There'll be notes on your file that indicate what somebody would have been calling you for. It's really an educational process. If you are unsure, ask a lot of questions. It's unfortunate, but it's very difficult out there right now because the fraudsters are good and they're very convincing.
So the person who receives that phone call in the evening, and it's from the Bank of Bennington, and we're calling to check on your mortgage, and we need to have your Social Security number that's being used on that mortgage. Don't pay much attention to that.
Absolutely.
Is it important to report those calls to the bank?
Yes, please do. If at all possible, get the telephone number that they called you from. We're seeing a lot of scam with local numbers. You think it's a local person calling you, you answer the phone, and then it's not a local person asking all sorts of information, private information that you should never be giving out at all.
We actually have a term for it, and it's called spoofing.
Yes.
And sadly, the idea of using your caller ID as a way to verify is something that's gone past the present. If you do get those calls, I guess the best thing to do is simply let the call go to your answering machine and then respond by calling the number back if you know it's the real number. And you can check that at your own leisure. So I think thank you. There's some very important issues. We're seeing losses by people to con artists based on things like receiving too much money in a check for payment. Maybe you can explain a little bit about that and how the bank is dealing with it.
Absolutely. Again, it's educating our customers. We ask a lot of questions of our customers, and sometimes they feel that we're intruding in on their privacy. We're merely trying to help and protect their best interest. If you're selling something online for $500 and you get a check for $1,500, clearly it's not lined up properly. The fraudster will then call you and say, oh, deposit that check, send me the item, keep $200 for your troubles, send me the difference. It ends up that that check is no good. The customer is now out of the product that they were selling. They're out the money that they sent by Western Union or wire. Typically, the tellers will ask, do you know why you received this check? Do you know who is sending you this check? If you're honest with the teller, we'll be able to tell you what we feel is true, if the check is good or not. If you really think that the check is good, we can put a hold on those funds. Wait for that check to clear through the system so that we can tell you, yes, this is true money, you can go ahead and use it, or no, the money is not true, and we now need to deduct that money from your bank account.
Now, there's some other steps that people can take, and I'm sure the bank can take as well, in terms of passwords for accounts, two-level passwords or two-level verification, document shredding. Does the bank provide any document shredding for its customers?
Not on a massive scale, no. But if you have some statements that you feel that are very important to be shredded, we certainly can do that. We've had a couple people bring in old wills, old documents that had a lot of private personal information on it. Certainly buying a shredding machine from a Walmart or Kmart, they're not expensive. It's certainly the best way to prevent somebody from going into your garbage. They call it dumpster diving. You don't want somebody going into a garbage or a dumpster and retrieving that information. Shredding it, cutting it with scissors is always best.
And I think since you brought up the issue of having a shredder, it's also important to get the right kind of shredder, because some folks think you can buy a $20 shredder which creates these nice long strips of paper which can then be taped together. So I think mentioning that it's important to get either a cross cut or a micro shredder. They're a little more expensive, but sometimes you can go in with a neighbor or somebody else and buy one, and it becomes a very inexpensive insurance policy in the long run. So are there any other self-defense mechanisms that you can think of when dealing with these financial issues?
Always checking your statements, always opening the mail from any bank. We send out monthly statements, we send out year-end documents. Open the mail, make sure that your statement is truly accurate, that the transactions that are posting are transactions that you have actually done yourself. There is a time limit for when reporting fraudulent transactions, especially with debit cards. So you want to make sure that you're looking at your statements in a timely manner. Online banking is a fantastic tool to look at your statements on a more regular basis. You could pull it up once a day, once a week. You don't have to wait until the mail is delivered to you. And unfortunately, the post office sometimes doesn't deliver the statement. So that online banking tool is wonderful. You want to make sure that you're authenticating the computer that you're on, you're following the steps that we are asking you to follow, and never give out that private information to anybody. Online access, your passwords, it needs to be safe, it needs to be secure and held by you only.
Okay, because my wife, for example, is very skeptical about the safety of online banking. And what you're saying at this point is that if you take the right steps, if you use the right questions in your own mind, that you can do this safely and not be concerned that you're going to end up losing your money because you're using a computer to check an account.
Absolutely. The Bank of Bennington takes a couple extra steps that some other banks may not. When you're logging in and registering yourself for a first-time user on online banking, we actually require you to call the bank. We're verifying that you are truly who you say you are and not somebody pretending to be you. There's another level of authority that requires a code to be sent to your phone through either a phone call or a text message. That's another level of authenticating who you are. The number needs to be listed in our system when you first originally open the account or periodically come to the bank to update your information. It's nothing that you can push through on your computer to our system. So the phone number needs to be at our fingertips for us to then be able to send you that code. It cannot be sent to somebody else's telephone number.
Okay, so for our viewers who don't really understand the two-level verification, basically what you're saying is you have a second way of contacting a customer in order to verify that it is indeed the customer of the bank that is you.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so that just adds one more level of security that many people might not realize is there.
Absolutely. There's many levels of security that the system will require you to go through to make sure that you truly are who you say you are.
Okay. You mentioned with online banking the ability to maintain your identity and not have somebody steal it based on their observing you. Now, that would seem to say there's some places you shouldn't be going online and checking your accounts. Is that correct?
Always know your surroundings. Online banking at home is secure. You're in your living room, your dining room. There aren't eyes watching you, watching what you're putting in as a password, or watching to see what your balances are, the last 4 digits of your account number. We do not list the full account number on our online banking for that safety, but it does list the last 4. Certainly if you're at the public library, you're at a convenience store or a fast food restaurant using their Wi-Fi, using your laptop, cell phone, whatnot, there's always wandering eyes. So you want to make sure that you're familiar with your surroundings.
Okay, so just use some common sense protection.
It's always common sense.
And similarly to how we saw when you're using an ATM, don't do things in wide open spaces. Cover your keypad entry so if somebody is looking or if there happens to be a camera above the keypad, nobody's going to be able to see what you're entering into it.
Absolutely. We also always recommend to use a well-lit area so that somebody can't come up to you after you've retrieved your cash.
Okay. Is there a particular way that people should be considering how to use a credit card versus a debit card? Is there, I know you don't offer, as a bank, you don't offer credit cards.
Correct.
But you do have debit cards. And is there really a rule of thumb that these are things you should be using a debit card for versus using a credit card? Because my understanding is when you use a debit card, you're technically making a withdrawal from your account.
Correct.
At the time that you use it. Credit card, on the other hand, technically you're borrowing the money?
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Yes, that's spot on. Yes.
Okay.
So whenever you're using a card, regardless if it's debit or credit, so you're getting it from Chase credit card or the Bank of Bennington debit card, those cards can be used anywhere. Different merchants will want you to put in your PIN number, which is a debit card. Other places will want a signature. However, they don't always require a signature if it's below a certain dollar amount. Also, the cashiers aren't looking at the signature on the back of the card to match the signature that you just placed on that receipt or on the signature pad. The cards can be used either way. It's really a matter of looking at your bank statements to make sure that the transaction that is showing on your statement is truly the transaction that you did. If it's not, if you become a victim of debit card fraud, somebody got a hold of your 16 digits on the front of your card, it's not identity theft, it's not that they have your account information, they merely have 16 numbers that are placed on the front of that card. That's debit card or credit card fraud. Notify your financial institution. We will conduct an investigation. There will be documents that you need to sign, but you will be given provisional credit until that investigation can be completed to determine if you truly did authorize that transaction or not. So you're not out the money. Unfortunately, there is some steps that you need to take.
Okay. Now, sometimes in this process, people actually forget that they purchased something?
Yes, that happens quite often with entry-level products that you're purchasing. First time, it's going to be $9.99, and it's a diet pill or it's a magazine, and then there's a limit, or there's a warning rather, of this is the first month payment at this really low price. After that, we will be sending you monthly shipments of this product, and the price goes up 3, 4, 5 times the cost. People forget that. They forget to cancel within the 30-day time limit. they didn't want the product any longer, but they never truly canceled that transaction. At that time, you need to call the company, cancel it, send back the products that you don't want. The companies are really good about dealing with that, and then they will return your funds.
Okay. And I'm sure that, you know, the same thing is true when somebody sees a great deal on a magazine subscription and makes that purchase with their debit card and doesn't realize that a year later, when the subscription expires, they've authorized a debit again for that particular purchase.
Correct, yes.
Okay. That does happen, though. The bank does have a procedure that one can use in order to not run into any deep trouble with the bank.
Absolutely.
Okay. Can you think of any other major issues or even some minor ones that you'd want to mention that, you know, relate to the potential for fraud or fraud as it has to do with banking?
I think I'd like to reiterate, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not. If somebody's trying to send you money because you're the long-lost heir of some prince over in Europe, and you have to pay a couple $1,000, $30,000, $50,000 in taxes just so that you can get a couple $1 million, it's probably not going to happen. Unfortunately, we've seen people do these kinds of transactions, and again, if they had been upfront with the banker who was helping them, we may have been able to prevent further loss trying to identify the fraudster. Certainly looking at your statements, I like to reiterate that. A lot of people don't look at their statements. They don't even open the envelope that's sent from the bank. You need to take matters into your own hands. You need to take the protection into your own hands. Do what you can to protect yourself and your bank account, and it relies on you. It can't rely on the bank because we don't know what transactions you've authorized and what ones you haven't.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I know I've learned quite a bit, and hopefully our listeners and viewers have also picked up some tips for how to proceed and what the bank is doing in order to protect them from being victims of fraud.
Absolutely.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. Thank you.
We're going to end today's segment with a couple critical alerts. Late winter is always a good time for people to be considering their tax filings for the next year. There is an IRS scam that is going on right now, and it involves people calling individuals saying that they are verifying IRS information and are looking for people to identify themselves using the Social Security number. If you get a call like this, know that the IRS does not call you. The IRS will send you a letter if there's any question. So anything that relates to your tax filings this year, you'll receive in the mail. The second scam that we see happening right now as an alert is notification by phone or by email that your electric service is going to be shut off. A number of businesses and residences have gotten this alert. Power companies will not shut off your power in the middle of the night. They will send you a written notice saying that there's a problem and give you a date specific that the power would be terminated. So those are two current scams. We want you to be safe. AARP is trying to protect people through FraudWatch. Contact the FraudWatch network with the information that we've given you if you see any fraud or scams that you want to report. Thank you.